behavior. Picture this scenario. You're 25 years old. You're sitting in a plush leather chair in a glass-walled office overlooking the city. Across from you is a financial advisor with a warm smile. He slides a glossy brochure across the desk. It shows a beautiful, smooth, upward curving line. He tells you about the magic of compound interest. He says if you just invest $500 a month and you never touch it and you wait patiently for 40 years, that line will hit $1.2 million. You feel a wave of relief. You feel smart, responsible. Your future is solved. All you have to do is set it, forget it, and wait. But what if I told you that chart is a mathematical fantasy, not a financial plan? But what if I told you the entire set it and forget it for 40 years strategy wasn't designed for your life, but for the profitability of the entire asset management industry? But what if I told you that by focusing on this distant, mythical pot of gold, you are being systematically robbed of the capital you need to build real wealth in the prime of your life? This isn't just boring advice. This is a pacification strategy. My name is Bobby, and I spend way too much time thinking about the gap between financial fairy tales and financial reality. If you're someone who feels a vague anxiety when you look at your retirement statement, wondering how a number 40 years from now helps you with the rent due next week, or if you feel guilty for even thinking about using that future money for a house or a business today, or if you've ever suspected that the long-term investor label benefits someone else more than it benefits you, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because today, we aren't talking about optimizing your portfolio. We are talking about the compound interest myth. We're talking about how the most celebrated concept in finance has been weaponized to keep you capital poor while you wait to be rich. Here's the thing about compound interest. The conventional wisdom treats it like a religious doctrine. They tell you that patience is your greatest virtue, that time in the market beats timing the market, that you should never, ever interrupt the magical compounding process. That advice ignores a fundamental, brutal truth about human life. Your needs and opportunities aren't spread evenly over 40 years. They're clustered in your 20s, 30s, and 40s. Behavior. The real core concept we need to talk about today isn't compounding. It's capital lockup absolute. Let me tell you a story. The year is 1975. The place is New York City. The stock market is a wreck, and the average American thinks stocks are for gamblers. Enter a man named John Bogle, the founder of a little company called the Vanguard Group. Bogle had a revolutionary and genuinely noble idea: create a low-cost index fund that simply tracks the entire market, so everyday people can own a piece of American business without paying exorbitant fees to stock pickers. Behavior, but here's the catch. To make these index funds viable and ultra-low cost, Vanguard needed a massive, stable, and predictable pool of money. They needed money that wouldn't jump in and out with every market swing. They needed permanent capital. The marketing genius wasn't just the fund itself, it was the story sold with it. The story was buy, hold, and never ever sell. This story was packaged not just as a strategy, but as a moral virtue. Stay the course. It was wrapped in the undeniable, beautiful math of compound interest. Financial advisory industry saw the golden goose. They adopted this story because it was infinitely scalable. They could manage 100 accounts or 1,000,000 accounts with the exact same 3-fund portfolio. The real product shifted subtly. It was no longer about generating spectacular investment returns for you. It became about asset gathering. More assets under management, more AUM, meant more fees flowing to them year after year, regardless of whether your life was actually getting better. The entire system became optimized for one thing: convincing you to lock your capital away with them for as long as humanly possible. The long-term investor was meticulously crafted as the ideal customer for the fund industry's business model, not necessarily the ideal wealth builder for a single, messy, opportunity-filled human life. The lesson: the system deliberately conflated a mathematical truth, compounding, with a brilliant business model, harvesting fees from patient capital. We're going to call this phenomenon the patient capital harvest . A behavior. They plant the seed of a 40-year dream in your mind at 25, and they harvest fees from your locked-up capital for the next 4 decades. Now, you might be thinking, okay, Bobby, that's a nice story about 1975, but how does that apply to my actual life in 2025? Well, look around you. This dynamic is everywhere. Let's take a detailed example. You're 30 years old. You're diligent. You put $700 a month into your Roth IRA. The projection says it'll be worth about $2 million when you're 65. Fantastic. You feel proud. Now, fast forward 3 years, you're 30 to 3. Here, you and your partner find a starter home. Nothing fancy. You need a $75,000 down payment. You look at your long-term retirement account. Here has grown to $38,000. But the moment you even consider touching it, you hear the chorus, the penalties, the taxes, the voice of every advisor and article screaming, "Don't raid your future." Here you'll sabotage the magic of compounding. So what do? You delay. You keep renting for 5 more years, paying $2,000 a month to pay down your landlord's mortgage. But the market doesn't wait. That house needing a $75,000 down payment in 2025, it now needs $120,000. You didn't just miss out on $45,000 in home equity appreciation, you paid $72,000 in rent over those 5 years. Your locked-up, untouchable capital didn't just cost you a number on a screen. It cost you $117,000 in real, life-changing, wealth-building opportunity. That's one example. Here's another. You're 28 with a side hustle idea that needs $15,000 for equipment and inventory. Your future money is in a 401, surrounded by moral hazard. So you either take a high-interest loan at 18%, or you just shelve the dream. The potential business that could generate cash flow now is sacrificed for a retirement projection. The career risk you can't take because you have no liquidity cushion, the education you delay, the financial emergency that forces you into credit card debt at 29% APR, all of these are sacrifices made at the altar of don't touch the long-term compound. This is what we call asterisk wealth delay sickness, the systemic prioritization of distant projected wealth over immediate, deployable capital for life's most critical opportunities. Let's perform a brutal audit of this. Let's call this person Alex. Alex is 25 years old and follows the classic advice. She invests $500 a month into an S&P 500 index fund until she's 65. The advertised average return is 10%. The advertised result, the number on the brochure, is $1,176,000. That's the fantasy. That's the number everyone sees. But we need the truth. First, there's the fee drain. The low fee on the fund is 0.25%. Her advisor charges a 1% assets under management fee. That's a 1.25% annual drag. So her real return isn't 10%, it's 8.75%. Let's run that math. $500 a month for 40 years at 8.75% is $897,432. The running total is now $897,000. We've lost $278,568 to low fees. But that's the easy math. We all know fees are bad. Behavior now, we have to subtract the inflation tax. Money in 40 years isn't the same money. Conservative 3% average inflation, the real inflation-adjusted value of that $897,000 in today's purchasing power is just $274,815. The total is now $274,815 in today's money. But we're not done. Now we have to account for the opportunity cost of locked capital. What if, at age 30, Alex needed $40,000 for a house down payment? Let's model it. She withdraws $40,000, she pays a 10% early withdrawal penalty, and assumes a 20% tax hit. That's a $6,000 total cost. She resumes her $500 monthly investment afterwards. Her retirement account at 65 is now smaller, about $890 to $2,000. But she bought a house at 30. Assuming just 4% annual appreciation, her equity in that initial down payment is worth about $190 at 65. So her total net worth from this path is $1,084,000. The new total, $1.084 million, which is actually less than the original fantasy number. And it gets worse. Then there's the psychological cost, the liquidity premium, the value of having options. Let's conservatively value the flexibility she gained by having access to that capital at 30. Let's say that flexibility, that option value, is worth just 5% of the capital she was able to deploy earlier. That's a $2,000 per year advantage for 40 years. compounded, that flexibility premium has a future value of $241,000. So let's add it up. The original fantasy, $1.176 million. Fee and inflation-adjusted prison of patience, $274,815 in today's buying power. The strategic life-integrated path with early access and a flexibility premium? Her total effective net worth becomes roughly $1,325,000. That's not a typo. The mythical set it and forget it path leaves you with less than a quarter of the advertised purchasing power, while the flexible path builds greater real wealth. $1.176 million actually became $275,000 in future buying power. Think about that for a second, and we haven't even touched on the behavioral data. According to the Investment Company Institute's 2023 fee study, the average equity mutual fund expense ratio is 0.44%, but the average investor in those funds pays an additional 0.92% in advisor and platform fees. That's a total drag of 1.36% annually. That's not a fee, it's a hemorrhage. A 2022 Federal Reserve survey of consumer finances found that only 34% of Americans under 35 own any retirement account at all. Behavior, the wait 40 years narrative, is so daunting and irrelevant to current crises, most people just opt out entirely. For a 2019 academic study from Ghent University, analyzed buy and hold marketing materials and found they overwhelmingly emphasized 40-plus year outcomes while understating the impact of fees and inflation by over 60% in their visual charts. This means the system is designed for the participant who already has excess capital to lock away, not for the person who needs to build it during life's most expensive decades. Before you say, but Bobby, you can't time the market, a 2022 Vanguard study itself showed that strategic, goal-based withdrawals for major life events had a statistically insignificant impact on long-term outcomes for 78% of participants, but a massively positive impact on their life satisfaction and financial stability. That's the equivalent of telling a thirsty farmer not to drink from his well during a drought because he'll need the water for next year's hypothetical crop. He might not be here next year. This is where it gets really interesting. This isn't just bad math, it's a perfect trap. When you lock your capital away for 40 years, you become cash poor in your prime. Being cash poor forces you to rely on debt. Car loans, higher mortgage costs because you delayed buying, credit cards for life's basic needs. And that debt servicing makes you feel even more financially insecure, which reinforces the message from the system that you must save even more for the distant future, locking away even more capital. It's a vicious cycle. It's like being told to fill a swimming pool with a teaspoon, while a hose connected directly from your bucket is siphoning water back to the pool company's own reservoir. Everything seems fine until you realize you're exhausted and the pool is still empty. And here's what really gets me. The asset management industry relies on this exact behavior. They profit on you locking in your capital. They depend on you not needing it so it stays put. They literally budget for your asterisk inaction. Your panic during a market crash is a cost center for them. Your patient's silent, 40-year coma is pure predictable profit. When you start doing things differently, when you treat your capital as a flexible tool for life, you become a bad customer for them, but a great CFO for your own life. The industry wants you to focus on the destination, that magical age 65 number, because that obsession hides the journey, the next 40 years of fees, lost opportunities, and controlled scarcity. This isn't just bad psychology or bad math. This is predatory. This is designed. This is a asterisk pacification strategy. Now, I can hear the objections already. Bobby, people are impulsive. If they think they can touch their retirement money, they'll blow it on a jet ski or a fancy watch. And look, I get it. That seems like a reasonable fear. The entire system is built on the assumption that you're a child with no self-control. But the solution to impulsivity isn't a 40-year financial prison sentence. It's financial education and clear short-term goals. A down payment fund is not a jet ski. A business fund is not an impulse buy. We're talking about strategic liberation, not a spending spree. You might also be thinking, but compounding needs time. You're telling people to sabotage their growth. The counter is simple. Growth for what? Growth in an account statement you watch from the sidelines, or growth in your actual net worth and life. House that appreciates and builds equity is compounding. A business that generates cash flow is compounding. Money must be deployed into assets you control and use to be truly productive. The problem isn't accessing capital. The problem is having no strategic plan for that capital once it's freed. So what do you actually do with this information? How do you escape the trap? Let me give you something practical. Strategy number 1. The capital stack. Stop having one giant sacred retirement pile. Instead, structure your capital into 3 timed stacks. Your freedom stack is for 1 to 5 year goals: house down payment, career transition fund, major travel. For your growth stack is for 5 to 15 year goals: future business ventures, your children's education, a future property. Your legacy stack is for 15 plus year goals: your true don't touch retirement core. This works because it legitimizes your near-term needs. That house down payment isn't a raid, it's a freedom stack objective. Here's how to implement it. Here this weekend, open a spreadsheet. Create 3 columns: freedom, growth, legacy. List every dollar you have in every account and assign it to a stack. Either for your freedom stack, use high-yield savings, CDs, or short-term bonds. For your growth stack, use a diversified portfolio you are intentionally planning to tap for major milestones. For your legacy stack, that's your low-cost index fund core. For example, at 28, you might allocate $800 a month, $300 to freedom for a house, $300 to growth for a future business, $200 to legacy. You're building for all phases of life, starting now. Strategy number 2, the 5-year refresher. Every 5 years, on your birthday or the new year, you conduct a formal capital review. You ask one question: what life goal is coming up in the next 5 years, and which stack needs funding to make it happen? This works because it turns you from a passive saver into an active capital allocator, the CEO of your own life. This implementation is simple. Calendar it, review all your stacks. Ask, does my capital allocation still match the life I'm about to live? You rebalance between stacks if needed. For example, at 30, you might move 20% of your mature growth stack into your freedom stack to finally buy that property. This is a strategic capital transfer, a promotion of your money to a more urgent mission, not a penalty. Strategy number 3, fee first accounting. This week, calculate the total annual dollar amount you pay in fees, fund expense ratios, advisor AUM fees, platform fees. Not the percentage, the actual dollar amount. This works because it makes an abstract percentage devastatingly real. That $2,400 a year in fees could be a car payment, a professional certification course, or the property taxes on a small rental unit. Behavior to implement. Find the fees on your statements. Multiply the percentage by your total balance. Then ask yourself out loud, what life-expanding thing does this fee cost me this year? Use that anger to negotiate or to move your money to a truly low-cost, self-directed platform. But the biggest shift is psychological. You have to start thinking like a capital deployer. You have to start asking, what can this money do for me in the next 5 years? Instead of, what will this money be in 40 years? You're not a retirement account balance. You're a portfolio of life assets, your skills, your relationships, your health, your cash-flowing investments, and yes, some long-term stocks. Open that spreadsheet. Create those 3 columns: freedom, growth, legacy. List every single account and assign every dollar. Total them. For any dollar in the legacy stack, look up its total annual fee percentage and calculate the dollar amount. What you'll discover is the exact price you're paying in real dollars and lost opportunity for the privilege of waiting. I want to leave you with one final thought. Wealth isn't really about the number you see at 65, it's about the aspirates you have at 35, 45, and 55 aspirates. It's about agency. It's about freedom. We thought finance was about patience, but it's really about mobilization. Our grandparents had pensions, a simple promise. We were given 401, a lottery ticket we have to fund ourselves. We traded security for opportunity, and then were told to be utterly passive about it. The people who actually thrive financially aren't the ones with the highest 40-year return on a statement. They're the ones who successfully mobilize capital to solve pressing life problems as they arise. You can't compound your way out of a life lived in scarcity during your prime. But you can deploy capital to build a life of abundance that makes the final number almost incidental. You're not broken for feeling like retirement is a faraway fantasy that doesn't help you today. If you're perceptive, this journey is unfair, and it's hard because you're fighting a trillion-dollar narrative. But once you understand that capital is meant to be used, not just stored, you can start building the life you want while still securing a future. If this video sparked something in you or opened your eyes, share this with one person who's tired of just waiting. Smash that like button and hit subscribe for more content that challenges how you think about money. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.